Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat here today with Toonami's ratings from this past Saturday, July 4th, Independence Day, 2020. Let's start with the top of the block. Dragon Ball Super at a 0.16, Dragon Ball Super at a 0.16, Dragon Ball Super at a 0.16, Dragon Ball Super at a 0.17, Dragon Ball Super at a 0.16, Dragon Ball Super at a 0.14, Dragon Ball Super at a 0.15, and Dragon Ball Super at a 0.16. As you can tell just from that alone, this was the marathon of Dragon Ball Super that aired this past July 4th. Unlike Toonami nights, it actually went from midnight to 4 o'clock. Toonami currently is officially 12 to 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's something to note as well. And usually with marathons, you tend to have lower ratings than normal, and you also tend to have very, very stable retention. And that's how you get this weird pattern here where the highest rated thing was actually at 1:30 in the morning, and you'd still keep a 0.16 as late as 3:30, which is something we don't get anymore. However, for it to start and to really maintain in the mid-teens is kind of disappointing. I made a prediction on my Twitter last week, or at least a few days ago, saying that this has a real shot at being the highest ratings Toonami would have in a long time, and like usual, I was wrong. As and I'm pretty sure, like, I think there's been marathons before that had lower ratings than this, so I don't think this is, like, the lowest rated night in Toonami history. But for Dragon Ball Super, a show that they're now gonna have be the lead off again for the block, to only pull in these numbers for a marathon is kinda disappointing. I believe the last time they had a marathon of this, it was, like, 0.23, 0.24, 0.22, stuff like that, and for it to drop as much as it did from then is kind of disappointing to see. And it's interesting because, again, this is what Toonami's put their money on for the future, for leading off the block again, and how they're starting, I think, from the start of the Tournament of Power arc again, when they do the episodes that started last night on Toonami. They're really gaming in on a long term, this being like a longer term solution, As you could say, with the current situation in the world, not much is being dubbed, and what's being dubbed is being dubbed very slowly. And yeah, and another little news tidbit I completely whiffed on with regards to Anime Expo Light is I believe it was the voice actor of Giorno from Golden Wind, JoJo Golden Wind, came out and said that they've more or less finished the dubbing for Golden Wind. And as you can remember, we had Ball Masters on the block because there were issues with dubbing Golden Wind, and now if Golden Wind's dub is truly finished, then there really shouldn't be any issue with it coming back on Toonami now. And there's even a perfect stopping point. We just ended season 1 of Ball Masters. So it wouldn't seem too out of the ordinary or really be disrupting a narrative to just put Golden Wind back on from where they left off. And it's the type of thing that if Toonami waits on this, it might turn ugly because, like I've mentioned in the past, JoJo's fan base, at least with regards to Toonami, is not numerically that large, but they are probably the loudest fan base on Toonami. So they're gonna be heard. And it's gonna be interesting if Toonami doesn't make an announcement in the next couple days saying, "Yeah, we have JoJo. JoJo will be on this Saturday." Things might get a little dark for Toonami, with regards to that. Especially considering there's such a dearth of new animated dubbed material. To have, was it like 10 episodes or so left, I believe, of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, just sitting there and them not picking it up, it's gonna make a few people panic. And also, you could say the same thing about Boruto, too. I think they're like 20 episodes ahead on the dub from where Toonami stopped airing it. And that is something that still perplexes me. Boruto is doing amazing ratings on the block, and then they just decided, well, we don't have it anymore. And my going theory, which is a bit probably generous to Tommy, is that Viz Media probably decided they were going to jack up the rates for Boruto mid-contract, and Toonami balked at it, which would be understandable from Toonami's perspective. Oh, and also another fun fact, JoJo is, the dubbing rights are by Viz Media as well, so maybe that's related, maybe that's not. Again, that's just really speculation on my part. But again, back to the main thesis of this Saturday, 8 days ago from when I'm recording this, is that Dragon Ball Super pulled in perhaps disappointing numbers for its own marathon. Like I said, marathons do historically get lower ratings, lower viewership, but usually I mean, for Dragon Ball Super, which really has been the savior for the block for the past 2, 3 years, it should be doing better than this. It should be at least be pulling in point twos, you know. And it's mentioning in a couple days when the ratings from this last night come out to see what Dragon Ball Super did because Toonami has this tendency that they really just follow what the first show does. If the first show is down, the rest of the block is down. If the first show's up, the rest of the block does well. And it's just going to be very interesting to see if Dragon Ball Super improves from that week and does better. And as a note, I've mentioned this a couple times. The lowest ever rating for the first show on Toonami is a 0.20. And that was done by Dragon Ball Super in fall 2018 once, and I believe two different times by My Hero Academia. And I believe once was like just like 5, 6 or so. So again, I'm not so sure Dragon Ball Super can get to 0.20. My prediction is that it'll get a 0.18, and the rest of the block will kind of just suffer at like a 0.14, 0.15, and it'll be kind of this continuation of what's been more or less a dark era for Toonami. And again, Toonami is really pinning their hopes on a couple Saturdays from now on July 25th with Adult Swim Virtual Con or whatever they're calling it. They're going to make a lot of Toonami-based announcements. Production IG has announced that they're going to have announcements with Toonami, and let's just see what that is. And I think right now the baseline that Toonami needs to have for it to be considered like an acceptable or at least a not disappointing turnout is more stuff about Uzumaki, debut date for Uzumaki. By then, you definitely have to have JoJo announced or on the block. Preferably, you make that before then. Don't wait until July 25th to make that announcement. That would be really stupid if you wait that long. That much faith in Ball Masters is a longer term solution for what really isn't much a problem from the 2 o'clock slot now. You should put JoJo back on as soon as possible. If I think Philip Reich is his name, the voice actor for Giorno, is right in saying that they're more or less finished the dub, then I don't see why we're waiting. And again, and if that happens, if JoJo gets announced to the block, just expect the quote unquote schedule change just be JoJo just coming back to 2 o'clock. It won't change or trigger any like full on scheduling shifts. So you have, like I said, Uzumaki announced, Uzumaki air date, perhaps at least like maybe a trailer or actual like at least a teaser trailer for the Blade Runner Black Lotus, something to that regard. And I believe Production IG already said last week that they have a new like title in the works. So hopefully at least announcement of what that title is, like a name and like a description of it. And I think that would be basically like a baseline for well, at least Konami held up their end of the bargain in regards to making announcements. And the sooner rather than later for those, especially with regards to JoJo, would work best for Tommy. But again, I think it's just having that date circled, marked in red, because that's going to be the date that determines Tanami's future. If they have more announcements rather than later, then Tanami at least looks like Tanami's going to go down swinging, or Tanami actually has a future beyond this year. If not, then Tanami might be on the skids for good. But again, what do you guys think? What are your opinions on these ratings? Do you like this content? Do you want more content like this? Please like, please comment, please subscribe. I appreciate your support. I am Super Orange Cat, and that is all.